Hi, and welcome to Was I Supposed to Know That? This is a podcast that is dedicated to the small business owner. My name is Bernard Williams, and I'm the managing partner of company Counsel. We're a law firm located outside of Philadelphia that works with small companies that are in growth mode. They've got big ambitions. They want to increase market share. They want to increase revenue. They want to do bigger and better things, and my job is to help them from a legal perspective. Now, as I just alluded, one of the things that most small companies care a lot about is revenue. In fact, that may be the most important thing to most of the small companies that I engage with. And they're always looking for ways to increase that revenue, to increase sales, to get more money into the coffers. And they might be very surprised to know that their very actions are leaving a lot of money on the table. So we're going to talk about it today, and to have that conversation with us, I'm so delighted to have an expert in the studio. Alex Hayes is the president of Boost Pricing, and she comes with over 15 years of sales experience. And not only is she excellent at sales and knows sales inside and out, but more importantly, she understands how to help companies to unlock their income potential just by understanding pricing and understanding the value that they bring. So I'm really excited to learn more from her during this conversation, and really pleased to welcome you here today, Alex.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So let's why don't we start by let's. I always love to hear people's origin stories. Yeah, how did you get involved? How did you come to Boost Pricing? Can you tell us that?
Yeah, I love sharing this question because my background is sales, and I'm currently a president of the company in more of an operator role, which is perhaps unusual. And Bernard, you and I are both familiar with EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So my background is sales leadership. I found out about this organization, Boost Pricing, via the founder, Casey, who still works in the business with me. I heard her speak at one point and was so excited and empowered by this message that I had been trying to get across to my team. I understood in the business that I was in that we had opportunity to charge more. There was a disparate margin even within my team. And I couldn't quite grasp at that time why and how that was happening. And understanding that it wasn't the market that was helping us charge more in some circumstances. The clients weren't particularly different. Certainly we were operating with the same products and services, but it was the confidence of the particular team member. And so I actually brought in Boost Pricing, the organization, into my team at that time for a training, and was able to shake out some of those bad habits enough so that my team was able to gain a little bit of confidence, see that they had a little bit more power than they realized, and have really impactful change on margin. And so I became even more passionate about this idea that we as sales professionals, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, have so much more power than we realize. And during COVID, I had the unique opportunity to learn about EOS, see myself really as the integrator that I am, and subsequently partner with Casey, our founder, as her integrator in this business. So long story to kind of tell you about why I'm here, but also why I'm really passionate about what we do.
I love that. I love that you began as a client and now you're the president of the organization. That's a wonderful trajectory.
Yeah.
So going back to the time where you were a client and you brought in Boost Pricing. So you said that you noticed that the people on your team were serving the same. The market conditions were the same, right? The products were the same, the prospects were the same, but there were differences in confidence.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? What were you seeing that made you think that it was a confidence difference and not just a skill difference, or maybe or a luck difference, or or anything other than, like, how did you identify it as confidence?
It's a good question, and I think that we in general, we underestimate the skills needed to be in sales. And so it's reasonable to say certain people need more skills, more skill building to capture more margin, more revenue, really, either of those things. And so I wouldn't say that it's not skills. Everybody needs that. I've been doing this for more than 15 years and I still love learning new sales skills and testing things out. And so much of what we do as sales professionals now is part of a process. Even if it's not a written, agreed upon process, most people on the team, in my experience, as when I was a leader, had a process that they followed. They were good at their jobs. They were professional salespeople. So they experienced training and took it in and tried things. And so I had a great team. I now meet a lot of people who don't. And still, there's so much opportunity when it comes to this aspect of the confidence isn't just saying, I'm great, what I do is great. It's more than that. So when I say confidence, what it is the ability to be able to communicate the value. Why are you great? Why are you excellent at what you do in a way that your competition is not? And if people have the skills to communicate that throughout the entire process, then they do have the confidence. So it's both of those things. With that said, in my experience with my teams, it's a little bit of all of those things. And also the people that are willing to try new things, really willing to step up and just say, you know what, I don't have proof yet that this is going to work, but I'm going to try it on my next quote, or I'm going to try it with the next conversation I have. It's kind of the same mindset of pricing. It's like, I'm willing to put myself out there. I'm willing to maybe not be liked, to try something. And when it works, I'm excited about it. And if it doesn't work, I'm not going to say I'll never try it again. And that mindset is, I think, what makes great salespeople. But it also is something that makes a huge impact to sales professionals' revenue and bottom line if they're the ones setting margin too.
Yeah, as I'm listening to you, I'm kind of listening through two different lenses, if you will. Mixed metaphor, but work with them. And so as a salesperson, I can see how having that confidence and that ability to articulate my value is going to make it a gigantic difference during that consultation or discovery call or sales meeting, whatever it is. But as an owner, I wonder if I view things differently. I wonder if I view the metrics differently. And I wonder if what I'm saying is, to increase the close rate, what I need to do is maybe adjust the price so that I get so that I get a higher close rate. And maybe that's more important to me than an individual sale. And maybe it's better for me to have a higher close rate and a lower margin versus the opposite.
Yeah.
Are those some of the conversations that you get into? And can you tell me why I'm wrong looking at it that way?
Yeah, I would say yes. And I can't tell you confidently that you're wrong all the time, but I'm positive you're wrong some of the time. And that's the trick of it, right? That's kind of the what I joke around, like that's the sexy part about pricing. It's not just a demand curve where if I charge less, I'm going to sell more, right? The nuance of pricing and the strategy behind it needs to take into account a lot more than just, I want to win more, so I'm going to drop my price, right? Chief discount officers are usually also CEOs. And there's a lot of reasons. One is, they want to win. We like winning. As entrepreneurs, it feels good. It's exciting. And then we're on to the next thing and our team can execute. And so it's better than having the conversations that draw on a little longer or having to explain why people should work with you. And certainly it's better than hearing no. In some situations, on some deals, with some clients, everyone is charging the right amount. And in some of those instances, almost everyone I've ever spoken to discounts when they don't have to. And I think that that's really where the nuance comes in, where when I'm speaking to entrepreneurs who are selling, and business founders who are selling, those are often the people that do lean too heavily on the revenue, honestly. Like they want to see those revenue numbers no matter what, because that's where your vanity is as a founder. But realistically in business, it is vanity. Revenue is a metric of vanity, and it doesn't mean a thing if you don't have a profitable bottom line. you hear all the time, I scaled my business from 1 to 10 million. I don't care if your revenue if your revenue grew like crazy, if your profit stayed the same, it doesn't matter. And so that's where your close metrics can be great. But if you're not doing the math and thinking about, listen, if I can increase margin by 5%, 10% and lose a little bit more frequently, is that worth it financially? If you're not thinking about that, if you're not doing the math, then you're probably missing out, and probably on a lot of money, candidly.
So for someone like me, for whom math was never my best subject, but here I am in a position of financial leadership, which, as the owner of my firm, which metrics are the most important? What should be on my dashboard to be thinking about?
I love that question, and it really should. I mean, I shouldn't say I love more of a leading metric. So, and this is more putting on my sales hat. So leading indicators, yeah, you should be making the right number of calls. Those calls should lead to the right number of discoveries. And you should have, you should set your close rate depending on your business and what your goals are. All of those things matter. Realistically, though, what you need to be looking at instead of revenue, which is important, of course, you still have to look at revenue and costs. Ultimately, the profit margin is where everything sits after that, right? One of the tools that we have on our website that I wish I would have given you ahead of time, and we can probably link to it later, is we have what's called a profitability calculator. And in that, you can change your numbers. So you can plug in, what's your revenue now? What are your COGS? What's your current margin? And then what happens if you increase by 1%? What does that do to your bottom line? And what happens if you lose 5% of your business when you increase by 1%? What does that do to your bottom line? So it's a fun way to kind of play with that. And what I have seen consistently is salespeople and oftentimes founders that sell chronically overestimate the amount of business they're going to lose when they increase price. And so put in your worst case scenario. Okay, I'm going to increase prices across the board by 10%, but I might lose 10% of my clients. Is it worth it? And I think that doing that allows people to get settled into this idea that they can charge more and are willing to try it, right?
Have you seen people go too far? Do you see people overcharge the market, and how do you identify that?
Yeah.
I'll ask you. How do you identify that?
I think realistically, for sure, people go too far, and some of it you do have to look at close rate. The thing is that if you're hearing price as the main obstacle, then you're just like everybody else. Like, it's the easy thing to say is the problem as a buyer. And even if the price is what I thought it was going to be, asking for a discount doesn't hurt. Like, I'm always going to ask for a discount. It's what I do as a buyer. I'm going to tell you someone else is cheaper. Someone else might be cheaper, but if I'm telling you, it probably means that I'd rather work with you. So if you think about it this way, as a buyer, I'm not going to waste my time telling you that you're inferior in your skill set and you're more expensive. I'm just going to go with the other guy, right? And so if we're not asking deeper questions into what that means when we hear price, then we'll never know. And that's really when you ask the question of, do I see people who go too far or charge too much? Probably. You have to get pretty consistent data to know that. I mean, if you're not winning enough to make the money you need to make to stay in business, then yeah, you got to make a lot of adjustments. One of those might be price, but candidly, it's so rare. I mean, I have never worked with a client-wide and said, let's try an increase or let's not negotiate a discount, and had them say, oh, we failed to capture the ROI on this. They capture an ROI on a training and development plan because it works, because they weren't charging enough, because they were discounting too frequently. And more often than not, really what I see is founders, CFOs, even the sales team know what is possible. Mm-hmm. They know that they could or should be increasing, and they're scared to do it, or they don't know how, or they're afraid they're going to lose clients. I talked to an entrepreneur. He's a second generation in his business last week, and he said, we will lose money this year to the tunes of millions of dollars if we don't increase by our margins by 5%. I have to. There's no question there, right? He doesn't need a pricing strategy to do that. He knows he has to increase by at least 5%, but he doesn't know where to start, and he doesn't think his team can do it. And so that's really, like, if I think about it, that's almost always the problem. It's not the, oops, I charged a little too much that time, right?
So for someone like him, what would you advise him? Where should he start?
Yeah, here's the thing. In a situation like that, which is where Boost operates most of the time, I love having these conversations with entrepreneurs and founders, especially in small businesses, because there's so much passion there and opportunity. What Boost does is we work with businesses that have scaled a little bit more, and those passionate founders have passed on the responsibility of sales to a team. And that team does not have the same excitement around it as the founder and the CEO. And that's okay. They don't need that. But what they do need to know deeply and inherently is the value they provide. And they don't have the skills to communicate it. And I would say that's across the board. I have yet to meet a team that cannot improve on the value messaging, asking good questions, and really understanding what the client needs so that the price can support the solution. There's always room for improvement there. And so that's where we start. Really, is there has to be other things that tie in, and most business owners are thinking about that. Yeah, we have to cut costs. Yes, I have to say we don't go below X on margin, but they have to set a new expectation, and then they have to give their team resources so that they can level up and meet those expectations. And if you're tackling it from all sides like that, then it's really hard to lose.
That's great. So again, I just can't help but think about my own experiences in sales consultations and sort of out in the field. And one of the issues that I've come across personally, and I kind of think this is ubiquitous across other industries. So I came from a big law background, right, where my clients during the first part of my career were Fortune 100 companies that they're print money, basically. And now, and for the past 10 years, my clients have been small companies and they're much more limited resources. Oftentimes, they don't even have a legal budget. So the fees that I charge on my behalf anyway, when I was an associate in big law, were many times more than the fees that I'm charging today as a partner and an owner of a firm with 25 years of experience. And the narrative that I tell myself is that it's because the clients are different. It's because I'm no longer selling to Fortune 100 companies. I'm selling to the person that owns the company down the street, which is, and I've got to scale everything accordingly. Mm-hmm. It is, I mean, there's a reality to that, right? The different markets, different clients have different, I guess, scales or I'm not sure the right word that I'm searching for here, but
yeah, it's a good, you're going in a really wise direction. So here's the thing, is that the ability to see that and understand, and in especially in professional services, you have the capability to say, within this business, this is the value that what I can do and provide will bring. And the value at scale for a $3 million business is very different than the value at scale for a $300 million business. And so, entrepreneurs don't go into business. Lawyers don't start their own firms because they know they're going to make way more money. Oftentimes, they are very aware that there's going to be a different set of responsibility, and they might make a little less, but they're going to have a lifestyle that they like. And so I come at it from two ways too, as an entrepreneur. You have to make sacrifices, knowing when and how and where you can charge more and where you can't. Sometimes it's a startup company. They have $0 and they're pulling from their personal bank account to pay you. And also they need you and you want to support them. And it's exciting to be part of that. And if someone makes a conscious decision to charge less in a situation like that, I'm not going to tell them no. What I am going to say is make sure that company understands the sacrifice you're making, because when they grow and scale, your your price can go up, right? Like you're not sedentary in, whatever hourly fee you started with when they started. You can say, listen, this is my normal rate. I'm doing it here for you because I'm passionate about what you're doing and I'm excited for you, so that they can still see the value, right? And that's I think the gap oftentimes with entrepreneurs, especially, is we give things away for free all the time. That's okay. I actually prefer that when we give things away for free than when we discount, because it's easier to communicate the value of what we would have charged. When we give a discount, it's saying this is actually what it's worth. I hate discounts, because if I say, you're $300 an hour, I have no idea what you charge, but say you're normally $300 an hour, and you come back and you say, you know what, but for you, I'll do it for $200. The thing that goes through my head is your real rate, what you should be charging is $200. What you can charge is $200. What you were going to charge me was $300. So you were trying to go too far, right? And that's what we do with everything. It's what we do with clothing. It's what we do with groceries. It's like, well, they're still making a margin on whatever, so I'm never going to buy this unless it's on sale.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've often thought that when I've seen different pricing for different clients for the same service.
Yeah.
Like I've seen places that have like small business pricing for the same prices, and it's the same exact service, the same amount of work, but for a larger company, it's the fee times X.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think that that's wrong. I just wouldn't publicly post it. A lot of the riches, we say riches are in the niches, right? So if you're thinking about cross-market selling and you're thinking about really analyzing who you're selling to, the value that you provide is going to be different depending on the client and their appetite. It's like, they give a random percent for marketing. Like, I don't even remember what it is. 10% of your revenue should be a marketing budget. That's totally different for my business than it is for a Fortune 100 company, but that's what you need to create value around marketing. It's kind of the same idea in my mind is, if we boil it down to a dollar rate that's appropriate for every business, for everybody, then you're undervaluing what you might be providing, especially at an hourly rate. And that's a whole nother podcast, because I think that the idea of hourly rates, especially for someone who has a lot of experience and a lot of efficiencies and a strong background and team behind them, their efficiencies turn into them getting paid less and less and less for the value they're providing, because you can provide more value faster. So I'll just sprinkle that in there. But
yeah, that may need to be a part two. And then just talking about how AI is going to change the dynamics of or it already is changing, has changed the dynamics of hourly billing. It's a long conversation in and of itself.
Yeah. And also I'll just say, think about it. Think about the efficiencies and where does that lead to you discounting? Does it lead to you charging more? Does it lead to you charging the same and knowing that it's going to take you less time? If there's an opportunity in any case to say, here's the body of work I'm going to do for you, and this is the price, as opposed to it's going to take me 3 hours and here's the price, then lean on the first one. Because then people you don't have to nickel and dime anybody. They don't feel nickel and dimed. They understand the value for what they're getting. And that's across any professional services firms we work with, law firms, marketing. It's kind of a ubiquitous problem with professional services, with efficiencies, especially like AI.
Right. A lot of what we've been talking about, I think, has been assuming that the prospect in mind is a brand new prospect to the firm or to the company. We haven't really talked about price increases. Is that something that you advise on as well?
It is, yeah. Price increases are as much difficult internally as they are externally, maybe more difficult internally than they are externally. And I mention that because people are so afraid this goes back to the fear, mindset, and confidence. They're so afraid of losing customers with a price increase. And over the last, especially 6 years, we expect it. We see it. We know it's happening around us. Everything is getting more expensive. So if you're not increasing your price to keep up, then you have already lost so much money. If you have not increased your prices consistently over the last 5 years, you've left a lot of money on the table. And that's just keeping up with what's going on in the world, right? I usually don't say rely on cost going up when you talk to your clients about price increases. Talk about the investments you've made, the value you provide, and those kind of things. But there's so little pushback on price increases right now that it's just one of those, you can very gently communicate a price increase and it goes flying by almost always without a second guess.
Does that vary by profession? And then the reason that I ask is that if I think about a company like a Netflix, who has price increases all the time, we go along with it. We don't cancel our subscriptions necessarily, but it makes us feel a certain kind of way about Netflix, right? So I don't want my clients feeling that way about me. Even if they do agree to continue on as clients. I mean, do you think that kind of this acceptance or this, is it always a reluctant acceptance, or does it maybe not even matter in some industries that people just?
It's I will answer that in a couple different ways. One is stop worrying about being liked in business. And I don't say that to just you. I say that to anybody listening, is that like our goal is not to be liked. We don't need to be friends with our clients. We need to be excellent at what we do and provide value to our clients. We want to be a consultant and trusted by our clients, but it shouldn't matter if they like you. Honestly, I want them to want to do business with you. Those don't have to be the same thing. And so if your price goes up because you're providing more value, and they're like, darn it, but totally worth it, that's not so bad, right? And it's kind of the same. I mean, realistically, it's kind of the same with something like Netflix. So like, is it so different? Of like, oh, that's a bummer. And also it's totally worth it for me to be able to get my shows. And if that's the conversation that people are having in their head of like, ooh, I've been getting this for less than I would have paid for it all along, bummer, I'm going to keep paying for it. It's, that's generally what's actually happening. It's not that people are like, oh, suddenly I'm feeling taken advantage of by Bernard and his firm. That's not it. And I talk about pricing to your value all the time. And I don't want it to come across as saying businesses should be greedy. There's no room in great business with value-driven companies to be greedy. But there's so much room in between those two things with most organizations that are excellent at what they do.
Yeah. Are there any particular client wins that come to mind, or any success stories that you'd be able to share?
Yeah. One of the things that I will say consistently happens, and most recently has happened with an organization that we have done business with for quite some time, as they make acquisitions and grow their organization and add more people, they go through our training. And we have quantitative goals. We want to increase people's margins. We want that to be very visible and definable. And that's what a lot of times we're talking about with people in the sales process, is getting their ROI on a program. But I think that the thing that really is more important and a consistent win and continues to be a win and is communicated to us by companies like this is that matters. It's an important aspect of it. It's how we make business decisions. But when people are able to walk around and be really proud of the role that they're in sales, whether they're selling legal services or they're selling nuts and bolts and screws, I want people to walk around and say, you know what, I do think what I do and how I provide it is unique and valuable. And it's making a difference for the people I'm selling to. So anytime I get communicated in that way with a client, to the extent that one of our clients is bringing myself and Casey to their annual sales meeting because they adore us and they want us to be able to meet the team, because this team is confident and excited and loves working for their organization, very much in part because of what we are able to provide them, which is the learning and education and ability to communicate their value.
That's terrific. So as you look ahead for your own company, for Boost Pricing, do you have any exciting initiatives on the horizon or anything that you can tell the audience about?
Gosh, we're working on things all the time. My business partner recently, about a year ago, came out with her book, Fearless Pricing. And so we've been working on promoting that. And she's a phenomenal keynote speaker. And so that's still, a lot of our focus is getting the good word out to sales leaders, business owners, and entrepreneurs, whether that be our blog, her book, speaking engagements, where we can help people see where they can charge more for the value they're providing.
That's great. That's great. And if people wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, my LinkedIn has been popping up here on the screen. But also, I'm always happy to speak to anyone, especially about what pricing and values-driven pricing, and they can reach out to me directly at alex@boostpricing.com.
Thanks, Alex. So this has been a really, really informative conversation. I've really enjoyed talking to you, as I always do. Do you have any parting words you'd like to leave to any small business owners who are listening in and copiously taking notes?
Yeah. Gosh, I wish I had planned for that. I have never met an entrepreneur or business leader who can't charge more somewhere in their business. So find a place, try it, and yourself for the value you provide.
Well, I really appreciate the value you provided here today on this podcast. Like I said, really learned a lot and I enjoyed it. So thanks so much, Alex.
Thanks, Bernard, for having me.
This has been another episode of How Was I Supposed to Know That?